My name is Emily, and I'm 32. That morning, sunlight spilled into our quiet kitchen, catching the edges of our oak table, worn smooth by years of shared meals. Nathan, my husband of 6 years, hummed a tune I didn't recognize, pouring coffee into our matching black mugs, their handles chipped from careless mornings. His smile was warm, but his eyes held a shadow, like a secret tucked behind kindness. "Drink up, honey," he said, sliding my mug closer, his wedding ring tapping the ceramic with a faint clink. I was jittery about a big meeting that could change my career, my palms damp with nerves, but his smirk as I sipped made my heart skip. The coffee steam curled upward, sharp and bitter, stinging my nose. Have you ever sensed a lie in someone you love? Share where you're watching from below, and please like and subscribe to hear what happened next. I gripped the steering wheel, the city blurring past. As I drove toward the office, the hum of the engine, a low pulse, under my thoughts. That bitter aftertaste from the coffee lingered sharp and metallic, like a penny left too long in my mouth. Nathan's smirk kept flashing in my mind, the way his fingers had brushed the mug, deliberate, almost possessive. Was I imagining things? 6 years of marriage, countless mornings like this. His quiet laugh over burnt toast, our late-night talks on the porch, and now my gut was twisting with doubt. I glanced at my phone, tempted to call him to demand what was wrong, but the clock glared back 30 minutes until the meeting. No time. I pulled into a gas station lot, the gravel crunching under my tires, my hands shaky as I parked. Just breathe, Emily, I told myself, the air inside the car stale and warm. Maybe it was the pressure. This presentation could lock in my promotion, a chance to prove I wasn't just Clara's protege, but a leader, someone who could hold her own in a room of sharp suits. But Nathan's voice, that too sweet, "Drink up, honey," echoed, and my skin prickled a chill despite the morning heat. I unlocked my phone, scrolling to our texts, hoping for reassurance, maybe a good luck message. Instead, a notification popped up, a message from Nathan to a number I didn't know. My thumb hovered, then tapped my breath, shallow. "She'll crash and burn today," it read. My breath caught a cold wave washing over me like stepping into a winter lake. The words stared back stark and cruel, glowing on the screen. Nathan, my Nathan, the man who'd held my hand through job rejections, who'd stayed up with me during my father's illness, had typed this. I scrolled up, heart pounding, but the thread was short, just that one line sent an hour ago. Who was he texting? Why would he say that? My mind raced, piecing together his late nights at the office, the way he'd started locking his phone, his distracted silences at dinner. Was he rooting against me? I leaned back, the car seat creaking, and closed my eyes, the world narrowing to the thump of my pulse. A memory hit me sharp and unbidden. My sister Hannah, 2 years ago, at our engagement party, her dress a soft blue against the summer dusk. She'd pulled me aside, her face tight, and said Nathan's charm felt like a mask. "He's too perfect, Em." She'd warned, her voice low, urgent, like he's playing a part. I'd laughed it off, called her overprotective, my heart too full of love to listen. But now her words clawed at me, each one a hook pulling up doubts I'd buried. Had I been blind? I loved him, built a life with him, our small garden, our Sunday drives. But this text, this betrayal, felt like a crack in everything I knew. My phone buzzed, snapping me back, the sound harsh in the quiet car. Hannah's name lit up the screen. I answered, my voice unsteady, catching on the edges. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, her tone soft but probing, like she could hear the tremor in my breath. "You sound off." I wanted to spill everything, to tell her about the coffee, the text, the fear curling in my chest like smoke, but the words stuck heavy as wet clay. "I'm just nervous. I lied about the meeting." She paused. the silence heavy, then said, "Call me after. All right, I'm here." I nodded, though she couldn't see, and hung up my throat tight, the phone warm against my palm. I stared at the dashboard, the engine humming faintly, the gas station's neon sign flickering in the distance. The meeting loomed Clara's expectations, my team watching their pens poised over notepads. I couldn't fall apart now. But that text burned in my mind, a wound I couldn't ignore, raw and pulsing. Was Nathan sabotaging me? The man who'd promised forever, who'd kissed me goodnight just hours ago, his breath warm against my cheek. My hands trembled, not from nerves, but something deeper, a mix of fear and fury, like a storm gathering inside. I started the car, the engine roaring to life, forcing myself to focus. Whatever he was playing at, I'd face it after the meeting. For now, I had to keep it together to walk into that office and prove I wasn't breaking. The office lobby buzzed with morning chatter, the clink of coffee cups, and the rustle of briefcases filling the air as I stepped out of the elevator, my heels clicking on the polished marble floor. My head felt heavy, like fog rolling in over a lake, and my fingers fumbled with my badge at the security gate, the plastic slick in my grip. Clara was waiting by the coffee machine, her navy blazer crisp, her smile bright but expectant, like a teacher waiting for her star pupil. "You ready, Emily?" she asked, handing me a stack of printed slides, their edges curling slightly. I nodded, forcing a grin, but my tongue felt thick, my thoughts sluggish, as if I were moving underwater. Was it just nerves? Or something else? I pushed the fear down, clutching the papers like a lifeline, their weight grounding me. We walked to her office, the glass walls reflecting my pale face, my hair slightly mussed from the drive. Clara ran through our strategy, her voice steady, pointing at charts with a pen that glinted under the fluorescent lights. But I struggled to keep up her words, slipping past me like rain on a windshield. The slides blurred numbers and graphs dancing, and a dull ache spread behind my eyes, pulsing with each heartbeat. I took a sip from my mug, hoping caffeine would cut through the haze, but the bitterness hit again, sharper now, coating my throat. My stomach churned a slow, uneasy roll. Nathan's text flashed in my mind. "She'll crash and burn." Was this his doing? I shook my head, trying to focus, but the room tilted slightly, the walls leaning in. Clara paused, her brow furrowing, her pen hovering mid-air. "You okay? You look off." I laughed too quick, the sound brittle, and said, "Just pre-meeting jitters." She didn't push, but her eyes lingered skeptical, searching my face for cracks. I excused myself to the restroom, the hallway's carpet muffling my steps. Inside, I splashed cold water on my face, the shock of it sharp against my skin. The mirror showed dark circles I hadn't noticed before. My reflection, a stranger eyes wide and haunted. My hands shook as I gripped the sink, the porcelain cool, the weight of doubt crushing me. Nathan wouldn't hurt me, would he? But the text, the smirk, the coffee, it all pointed to something dark, a shadow I couldn't outrun. Back in the hallway, I ran into Mark, my coworker who'd been gunning for the same promotion, his ambition, a quiet blade. He leaned against the wall, his tie loose, a smug grin spreading as he saw me, his cologne sharp and cloying. "Rough morning, Emily," he said, his tone dripping with fake concern, his eyes glinting like he'd caught a scent of weakness. "Bet Clara's wondering if you're cut out for this." I stiffened, my jaw tight, the words cutting deeper than I'd admit. "Not now, Mark," I snapped, brushing past him, my shoulder grazing his arm. His laugh followed me, low and mocking, echoing in the empty corridor like he could smell my fear. I ducked into a quiet corner, a nook by a potted plant, its leaves dusty and drooping. I pulled out my phone again, the screen's glow harsh in the dim light. No new messages from Nathan, but the silence felt louder than words, a void swallowing my hope. My thumb hovered over Hannah's number, desperate to tell her everything, to hear her voice pull me back from the edge, but shame stopped me. A bitter taste, sharper than the coffee. She'd warned me, and I'd ignored her, choosing love over reason. Now, I was unraveling, and the meeting was minutes away, the clock on the wall ticking like a heartbeat. I opened my notes app, typing frantically Nathan's text. Coffee tastes wrong, feel dizzy. It was a lifeline, proof I wasn't imagining this, a record in case I fell apart. But it didn't stop the panic rising in my chest, a tide I couldn't hold back. Clara called me back, her voice cutting through the haze, sharp and clear from down the hall. We're starting soon, let's go. I slipped my phone into my pocket, my heart racing, the weight of it heavy against my hip. Mark's words echoed, mixing with Nathan's betrayal, a chorus of doubt. I felt exposed, like everyone could see the cracks in my confidence, my carefully pressed blouse now clinging to my damp skin. As I followed Clara to the meeting room, my legs felt unsteady, each step heavier than the last, the carpet seeming to pull at my feet. I set my mug on the table, its black ceramic glinting under the fluorescent lights, a dark mirror reflecting my fear. Whatever was happening, I had to hold it together. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong, a truth I couldn't yet name. The meeting room smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, the air thick with expectation, the hum of the air conditioner, a low drone. I sat at the polished table, my notes spread out, their edges curling, trying to anchor myself against the tide inside. Clara was across from me, reviewing her tablet, her glasses catching the light, while the rest of the team filtered in their briefcases, snapping open with sharp clicks. Nathan slipped into the chair beside me, his cologne sharp and familiar, a scent that used to comfort me now twisting my stomach. He leaned close, whispering, "You've got this, babe." His voice smooth as ever, sliding over me like oil. But his words felt like a trap, each syllable tightening the knot in my chest, a noose I couldn't shake. I forced a smile, my fingers curling around my mug, the ceramic warm against my clammy palms, its weight a small shield. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a soft vibration against my thigh, and I stole a glance, my heart skipping. Another text from Nathan sent just now. "Knock 'em dead, Emily." I stared at it, my pulse hammering, the screen's glow harsh in the dim room. Was he mocking me? The fog in my head hadn't lifted, and my mouth felt dry like I'd swallowed sand, my lips sticking together. I took a sip of water, hoping to clear it, but my hands shook, betraying me, the glass clinking against my teeth. Nathan noticed his lips twitching, and I swear I saw a glint of satisfaction in his eyes, a predator's gleam. My stomach twisted, rage simmering beneath my fear, a fire I couldn't let out. How could he sit there, pretending to be my partner, while plotting my failure? Clara stood, calling the meeting to order, her voice cutting through the chatter like a blade. "We're pitching to the board today," she said, her tone steady, commanding. "Emily's leading. Let's make this count." The team nodded, their pens poised, but Mark slouched at the end of the table, smirked, his pen tapping rhythmically, like he was counting down to my collapse, each tap a needle in my nerves. I straightened, willing my voice to stay even, but my thoughts were sluggish, like wading through mud, each step heavier than the last. Nathan's hand brushed mine under the table, a gesture that once felt loving, but now made my skin crawl, a violation I couldn't name. I pulled away, my heart racing, the room's walls seeming to lean closer. Then Nathan stood, excusing himself to the bathroom, his chair scraping softly against the carpet, a sound that grated my raw nerves. He left his phone on the table screen dark, but unlocked a careless mistake that felt like a dare. My breath hitched, a sharp intake that burned my lungs. The team was distracted, flipping through handouts, their papers rustling. And Clara was answering a question, her voice distant. I glanced at his phone, my fingers itching, a reckless urge rising. This was my chance. I slid it closer, my pulse roaring in my ears, louder than the room's hum, and tapped the screen, my fingers trembling. His texts opened, and there it was, a thread with someone named Tessa. My chest tightened, a vice squeezing my ribs as I scrolled each message, a knife cold and precise. This incompetent moron will finally embarrass herself. Nathan had written time-stamped this morning, the words glowing like a brand. Tessa's reply: "About time. Make sure she bombs." My vision blurred, not from dizziness, but from fury, a red haze at the edges. Another message from Nathan. "The sedative in her coffee should do the trick. She'll slur and stumble, and everyone will see she's a fraud." I froze, my breath shallow, the word sedative burning, confirming my worst fears, a truth I couldn't unsee. Nathan, the man I'd built a home with, who'd framed our wedding photo with care, was drugging me, betraying me, laughing about it with her. Who was Tessa? A lover, a friend. The name stirred a vague memory, someone from our past, a face at a party, but the pain drowned it out, a tidal wave swallowing reason. I shoved the phone back, my hands trembling so hard I nearly knocked over my water, the glass wobbling on the table. Nathan was sabotaging me, not just hoping I'd fail, but ensuring it a calculated cruelty I couldn't fathom. My mind flashed to our wedding day, his vows spoken under a soft June sky, the way he'd promised to lift me up, his voice breaking with emotion. Lies. All of it a performance I'd believed. Rage surged hot and raw, but grief hit harder, a deep ache for the life I thought we had, the dinners we'd cooked, the dreams we'd shared. I gripped my notes, the paper crinkling under my fingers, and glanced at Clara. She was watching me, her expression unreadable, a flicker of concern in her eyes. Could she see I was unraveling? I had to hold it together, but the room felt like it was closing in Nathan's betrayal, a weight I couldn't shake, heavy as stone. Nathan slid back into his seat, his presence like a shadow swallowing the light, his cologne now a sickly wave that turned my stomach. I stared at my notes, the words swimming my heart, a drumbeat in my chest, each thud echoing in my skull. The sedative. His plan to humiliate me. It was real, and he was sitting right here, close enough to touch, acting like nothing was wrong, his posture relaxed, almost mocking. My throat burned, not from the coffee, but from the scream I was holding back, a primal urge to shatter his facade. Clara cleared her throat, signaling me to start the presentation, her voice a distant anchor. I stood my legs unsteady, the room's eyes pinning me like a spotlight, their gazes sharp and expectant. I opened my mouth, but my voice cracked, the first slide's title slurring into nonsense, a garbled mess that hung in the air. A ripple of surprise passed through the team, their eyebrows lifting, pens pausing. Mark leaned forward, his grin sharp like a wolf sensing blood, his teeth catching the light. Clara's brow creased, her faith in me, wavering, a subtle shift that cut deeper than words. I gripped the table, fighting the fog in my brain, but each sentence stumbled, my tongue heavy, betraying me, the sedative pulling me under. Nathan reached for my hand, his touch a mockery of support, and whispered, "You're doing fine." His breath warm against my ear. I yanked away, my skin crawling, the room spinning, the walls blurring into a haze. My mind clawed at memories, searching for how I'd missed this, a desperate hunt for signs I'd ignored. Nathan's jokes about my ambition, how he'd laugh and call me his little overachiever, always with an edge a bite, I dismissed as teasing. I'd brushed it off, thinking he was proud, my love for him blinding me to the resentment simmering beneath. But now I saw the truth. He'd hated my climb, every step I took towards something he couldn't control. And Tessa, her name, a splinter in my thoughts, sharp and unyielding. I remembered her now, a friend from college, always hovering at parties, her eyes lingering on Nathan, her laugh too loud, too close. Had they been plotting this for years? A slow poison I'd never seen. The betrayal cut deeper, not just him, but her, someone I'd once trusted her face, now a ghost in my memory. I flipped to the next slide, my hands fumbling, and a chart loaded wrong numbers jumbled a chaotic mess on the screen. A murmur spread soft but stinging, and Mark piped up. "Maybe we should pause. Let Emily regroup." His tone was all fake concern, but his eyes gleamed with triumph, a predator circling. Clara hesitated, then nodded, her voice gentle but firm. A teacher disappointed. "Take a minute, Emily." My face burned humiliation, swallowing me whole, a heat that spread from my cheeks to my chest. I sat my chest tight, the sedative dragging me down like quicksand, each breath a struggle. Nathan patted my shoulder, his fingers lingering a touch that felt like a brand, and I wanted to scream to expose him right there, but my voice wouldn't come locked behind the fog. I glanced at my water glass, desperate for clarity, but my reflection in it looked broken, a woman I didn't recognize. Her eyes hollow, her lips pale. The team whispered their pity, worse than scorn, a soft buzz that burrowed into my skin. Clara leaned over, asking quietly if I was sick, her hand hovering near mine. I mumbled something about stress, my words hollow, barely audible. Nathan's phone lit up with a new text, and I caught a glimpse Tessa again saying, "Told you she'd choke." My blood boiled a fire in my veins, but grief hit harder. A wave of loss for the man I thought I'd married, the one who danced with me in our kitchen, now a stranger. He was destroying me, and I was powerless, sinking in front of everyone I needed to impress my dreams, slipping through my fingers. The clock ticked each second, a hammer on my nerves, its hands moving with cruel precision. Clara announced a short break, and the team scattered their glances, heavy with doubt, their footsteps muffled on the carpet. Nathan stayed his expression, all concern, but I saw the truth in his eyes, satisfaction, a glint of victory. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms, the pain the only thing keeping me grounded, a sharp anchor in the storm. I was drowning in his betrayal, my career slipping away, and all I could do was sit there, trapped in the wreckage of his plan, the room's silence louder than my breaking heart. The break ended, and the team shuffled back into the meeting room, their murmurs like static in my ears. A low hum that grated my raw nerves. I sat rigid, my notes crumpled in my lap, their ink smudged from my damp hands, the weight of Nathan's betrayal pressing down a boulder on my chest. Clara gave me a nod, her eyes searching, urging me to pull through her faith. A fragile thread I couldn't grasp. I stood, my knees weak, determined to salvage something, but my head throbbed, the sedative still clouding my thoughts, a fog I couldn't shake. Nathan leaned back, his arms crossed, watching me like a predator sizing up prey, his calm a taunt. My fingers brushed my wedding ring, its metal cold, a shackle I hadn't named until now, and for a moment I wanted to rip it off and throw it at him to shatter his smug facade. I cleared my throat, starting again, but my voice wavered, thin and unsteady, like a radio losing signal. The projector hummed, casting numbers across the screen, their stark white glow harsh against the dim room, but they meant nothing to me now, just shapes mocking my failure. All I could see was Nathan's phone. Those texts, his plan to ruin me, each word a cut I couldn't staunch. My gaze darted to his mug, black and glossy, identical to mine, sitting untouched on the table, its surface catching the light like a dark mirror. An idea sparked, wild and reckless, born from the fury boiling inside me, a fire fed by every lie he'd told. If he wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter, turn his cruelty back on him. Clara asked a question, pulling me back, her voice sharp but kind, and I mumbled a response barely coherent, my words tripping over each other. Mark snorted, not even hiding his contempt now. His laugh ablaze in the quiet. The team's patience was thinning their trust in me, fraying their eyes, darting away embarrassed for me. I glanced at Nathan again, his smug calm fueling my resolve, his posture a challenge I couldn't ignore. He reached for his mug, then paused, distracted by a colleague's comment, his hand hovering midair. My heart pounded a drumbeat urging me forward, a rhythm I couldn't resist. This was it, my only chance, a fleeting window to act. I leaned forward, pretending to adjust my papers, the rustle loud in my ears, and with a quick, subtle motion, I swapped our mugs, sliding his closer to me and mine to him, my fingers brushing the warm ceramic. My breath caught adrenaline, surging a sharp jolt that cleared the fog for a moment. Had anyone noticed, I scanned the room, my eyes darting, but Clara was focused on her tablet, her stylus tapping softly, and the others were flipping through handouts, their heads bowed. Nathan turned back, oblivious, and picked up my mug, the one laced with his sedative, his fingers curling around it with casual ease. He took a sip, his eyes locked on me, a faint smirk curling his lips like he knew he'd won. My stomach twisted, a mix of fear and defiance, a knot I couldn't untangle. What had I done? This wasn't me plotting revenge, turning his weapon against him, a shadow of his own cruelty. But the memory of his words calling me a fraud burned too deep to stop now, a fire I couldn't douse. I forced myself to continue clicking to the next slide, the projector's whir filling the silence. My voice steadier now, fueled by a desperate need to prove him wrong, to claw back my place. But inside, I was unraveling, guilt clashing with rage, a storm tearing me apart. What if I'd miscalculated? What if he didn't drink enough? Or worse, what if he did, and I'd crossed a line? I couldn't uncross a boundary I'd never meant to touch. My hands trembled, hidden behind the podium, the wood smooth under my fingers, and I caught Clara's gaze. Her expression softening, like she sensed my struggle, a quiet empathy I didn't deserve. I wanted to confess everything, to scream the truth, to shatter the room's false calm. But the room felt like a cage. Nathan's presence suffocating me. His breath, a steady rhythm beside me. He shifted in his seat, his fingers tapping the table, a nervous tick I hadn't seen in years. A crack in his armor. Was it starting? My pulse raced every second, stretching into eternity, the clock's hands frozen. I stumbled over a statistic, my focus split between the presentation and Nathan's every move, his every breath. The team was watching, judging, their eyes heavy, and Mark's pen scratched notes, probably listing my failures, his smirk a silent accusation. But all I could think was, did I do it right? Would his own plan backfire? Or had I just sealed my own downfall, a gamble I couldn't undo? My voice droned on, reciting figures I barely understood each word. A struggle while my eyes flicked to Nathan, a reflex I couldn't stop. He coughed a small sound, but it jolted me sharp as a snapped twig. His hand loosened around the mug, his fingers slack, and his eyelids fluttered heavy like curtains dropping over a stage. The room didn't notice their focus on my faltering presentation, their pens scratching, but I saw every shift, the sweat beading on his forehead, glistening under the lights, the way his shoulders slumped, his posture crumbling. The sedative was hitting him, my mug's poison now, his a cruel mirror of his own plan. My heart thundered a mix of triumph and terror, a collision I couldn't untangle. I'd turned his betrayal back on him, but the weight of it crushed me, a stone I hadn't meant to carry. Clara raised a hand, asking me to clarify a point, her voice pulling me back. But before I could answer, Nathan interrupted, his voice loud, slurred, cutting through the room like a broken glass. Wait, he said, waving a hand, his movements jerky. Let me explain that. Heads turned confusion, rippling a wave of raised eyebrows and stifled gasps. His words tumbled out, jumbled a mess of corporate jargon and nonsense, a stream of gibberish that hung in the air. Someone coughed, uncomfortable, the sound sharp in the silence. Mark's eyes widened, his pen frozen mid-stroke, his smirk wiped clean. Clara's mouth tightened. Her professionalism strained her hands, gripping her tablet. Nathan kept talking, oblivious. His face flushed eyes glassy, unraveling in front of everyone, a spectacle I'd orchestrated. I stood frozen, the clicker trembling in my hand, its plastic slick with sweat. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? To expose him, to let his own plan destroy him, to strip away his mask. But watching him collapse, his reputation shredding with every garbled word, felt like a knife twisting in my gut, a wound I hadn't expected. The man I'd loved, who'd held me through sleepless nights, who'd laughed with me over bad movies, was now a stranger, a saboteur, and I'd pushed him to this, my hands as dirty as his. Guilt clawed at me, a cold grip, but the memory of his texts, his cruelty burned hotter, a fire I couldn't douse. He deserved this, didn't he? The question echoed unanswered, tearing me apart. The room grew restless, whispers spreading like wildfire, a soft buzz that stung my ears. Nathan tried to stand, bracing the table, his knuckles white, but his legs buckled, and he knocked over his mug, the crash loud in the quiet. Coffee spilled dark and slick, pooling across the table, soaking papers, a chaotic mirror of his unraveling. A gasp escaped someone sharp and startled, and Clara stood, her voice sharp, cutting through the chaos. "Nathan, sit down," she said, but he waved her off, mumbling about needing air, his words slurring into nothing. His eyes met mine, unfocused, and for a split second, I thought I saw panic, maybe even suspicion, a flicker of realization. My breath stopped, my lungs tight. Did he know I'd switched the mugs? The thought paralyzed me, a cold spike in my chest. Mark seized the moment, his voice cutting through smooth and opportunistic. "Maybe we should reschedule," he said, glancing at me. Then Nathan, his eyes glinting with ambition. "Clearly things are falling apart." The jab hit like a punch, implying I was the failure. Not just Nathan, a twist of the knife. Clara hesitated, her gaze flickering between us, her composure cracking, and I felt the team's judgment settle on me, heavy as stone, their whispers a chorus of doubt. My career, my future was slipping through my fingers, and Nathan's collapse was dragging me down with him, a sinking ship I'd helped scuttle. I opened my mouth to speak, to reclaim control, to say anything, but nothing came, my voice lost in the chaos. The room spun, my chest tight, every hope I'd clung to shattering in the wreckage, a broken mosaic of my own making. The meeting room cleared out, leaving a mess of spilled coffee and scattered papers, the air thick with the scent of ink and tension. Clara ushered Nathan to a side office, her face tight with concern, her heels clicking sharply as she guided him, his steps unsteady. The team dispersed, their whispers trailing like smoke, a haze of gossip I couldn't escape. I stood alone by the table, my hands still shaking, the weight of what I'd done sinking in a cold stone in my gut. I'd switched the mugs, turned Nathan's betrayal against him, and now he was the one slurring, stumbling, exposed, his mask shattered. But the victory felt hollow, my chest raw with grief and rage, a storm I couldn't calm. I couldn't let it end like this, not with my career in tatters and his lies still choking me, a noose I'd helped tighten. I grabbed my bag and slipped into the office break room, the hum of the vending machine, the only sound a low drone that buzzed in my skull. The room was dim, lit by a single flickering bulb, the air stale with the scent of burnt popcorn. Nathan was there, slumped in a chair, sipping water from a paper cup, his face pale, but his eyes sharp again, regaining their edge. He looked up, his expression a mix of confusion and defiance, a predator cornered but not broken. Emily, what happened out there? He asked, his voice low, testing me, probing for weakness. My stomach churned a slow roll of nausea. He didn't know I'd seen his texts, didn't suspect the switch, his ignorance a weapon I could wield. This was my moment, my chance to confront the man who'd tried to ruin me, to strip away his lies. I set my bag down on the counter, the zippers rasp, loud in the quiet, my voice steady, despite the storm inside a fire I'd kept banked too long. I know what you did, Nathan, I said, locking eyes with him, his gaze a cold challenge. I saw your text to Tessa, the sedative in my coffee, all of it. His face froze, a flicker of panic breaking through his calm, a crack in his armor I hadn't seen before. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off, my words sharp, precise. Don't lie. I read every word. You wanted me to fail, to humiliate myself.
Why?
My voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the betrayal's sting, still fresh, still bleeding, a wound I couldn't close. Nathan leaned back, his jaw tight, his fingers crumpling the paper cup, and for a moment I thought he'd deny it, spin another lie. But then he laughed, a cold, bitter sound, like ice breaking underfoot. You think you're so perfect, Emily, he said, his words venomous, each one a dart. Always chasing your big career, leaving me in the dust, acting like you're better than me. Tessa gets it. She sees you for what you are, a fake who's in over her head, a nobody playing dress-up. Each word was a punch, stripping away the man I'd loved, the one who'd planned our future over late-night wine. I wanted to scream, to demand how he could hate me this much, to claw back the years I'd given him. But I held still, my fists clenched, my nails biting into my palms, letting his truth spill a poison I needed to hear. I stepped closer, my voice low but firm, a blade I'd sharpened in silence. I switched the mugs, Nathan. You drank your own poison. His eyes widened, shock replacing his smugness. His mouth parting in disbelief, and I felt a spark of power, small, but growing a flame, catching tinder. You thought you'd break me, but I'm still standing stronger than you'll ever know. I turned to leave, my heart pounding, each beat a declaration. But his hand shot out, grabbing my wrist, his grip tight, bruising. You don't get to walk away, he hissed, his voice low, a threat I hadn't expected. My pulse spiked, fear mixing with resolve, a collision of instincts. I wasn't his pawn anymore, and I wouldn't let him pull me back into his game, his world of lies and control. I twisted my wrist free, Nathan's fingers slipping away, his grip no longer a cage, his touch a fading burn. My heart pounded, but I stood taller. The break room's fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on his face, his features sharp and hollow. He stared, his mouth half open, like he couldn't believe I'd fought back, his eyes searching for the old Emily, the one who'd apologize, who'd smooth things over to keep the peace. She was gone, buried under the weight of his betrayal. You don't get to control me anymore, I said, my voice low, each word a stone. I was laying down a foundation for something new. I'm done with your games, Nathan, done with you. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of anger, but I saw fear too, a crack in his armor I'd never noticed before. I turned and walked out my steps, deliberate, the click of my heels echoing in the empty hallway, a rhythm of defiance. The meeting was still paused, and I knew Clara and the team were waiting, their doubts about me growing, their whispers a shadow I couldn't outrun. But something shifted inside, a quiet strength I hadn't felt in years, a spark that had smoldered too long. Nathan's betrayal had cracked me open, but it also woke me up, showed me I wasn't just his wife, his target a shadow in his story. I was Emily, with a voice, a future, a fight worth winning, a life I could claim. Back in the meeting room, I gathered my notes, my hands steady now, the paper smooth under my fingers. Clara was at the front, reorganizing her tablet. Her expression guarded her glasses, reflecting the overhead lights. The team trickled back their chatter, subdued their eyes, darting to Nathan's empty chair, a silent question. Mark lingered by the door. His smirk faded, sensing a shift, his usual confidence dimmed. I took a deep breath, the air sharp in my lungs, tasting of dust and possibility, and walked to the podium, my heels steady on the carpet. Clara looked up surprised, her eyebrows lifting, and I gave her a small nod, not asking for permission, but claiming my place, a quiet declaration. I started the presentation again, my voice clear, each slide clicking into focus. The projector's hum, a steady backdrop. The numbers made sense now, the strategy I'd spent months crafting, flowing effortlessly, each word a step forward. I didn't look at the empty chair where Nathan had sat, didn't let his shadow touch me. His absence, a space I filled with my own strength. The team listened, their skepticism softening their pens, moving again, and Clara's eyes warmed, a flicker of pride breaking through her reserve. A nod I felt in my bones. Mark shifted uncomfortably. His pen idle, his usual jabs silenced his ambition, checked. I wasn't just surviving. I was commanding the room, proving I belonged not to them, but to myself. Halfway through the door creaked a soft sound that pulled my eyes up. Hannah stood there, her coat slung over her arm, her face a mix of worry and resolve, her hair catching the light from the hall. She'd come just like she promised, her presence a lifeline. I hadn't known I needed a tether to the woman I was becoming. Our eyes met, and she gave a small, fierce nod, like she saw me not the sister who'd ignored her warnings, but the one standing tall now. I faltered for a second, emotion swelling a warm tide in my chest, but pushed forward, my voice stronger, carrying me through. This wasn't just about the promotion anymore. It was about reclaiming myself, for me, for Hannah, for every time I'd let Nathan dim my light, every moment I doubted my worth. As I finished a key point, the room quiet. I set the clicker down, my fingers brushing the table's edge, the wood cool and solid. I didn't need to shout or cry to feel the power in that moment, a quiet force that filled me. I looked at Clara, at Hannah, at the team, their faces a mosaic of surprise and respect, and felt a truth settle deep. I was enough, not because I'd won, but because I'd chosen to stand. I stepped back, my gaze steady, and in the silence, I knew I'd already started to rebuild what Nathan tried to break, a foundation laid with my own hands. The presentation ended, and the room held its breath. The silence thick with something new, a shift in the air I could feel on my skin. Clara stood, her voice cutting through, thanking the team and dismissing them, her tone professional but warm. Her eyes lingering on me, a quiet respect I hadn't seen before, a nod that felt like a hand on my shoulder. I gathered my notes, my fingers steady, the paper crisp now. Hannah still by the door, her presence a soft anchor, her silhouette framed by the hallway's light. The team filed out, their glances different now. Not pity or doubt, but curiosity, like they were seeing me for the first time, a woman they hadn't expected. I felt exposed, but not weak, raw, but standing, my spine straight, my breath even. I headed home, the drive a blur of streetlights and my own thoughts, the city's hum, a distant lullaby. Nathan's absence loomed, his betrayal, a ghost in the passenger seat, his cologne still faintly clinging to the car's upholstery. I unlocked the front door, the house too quiet, the air heavy with the life we'd built, each room a memory I hadn't yet sorted. His jacket hung on the rack, a relic of a man I no longer knew, its fabric soft but foreign now. I dropped my bag and sank onto the couch, the cushions cold, their fabric rough against my skin. My phone buzzed, Hannah checking in her text, a simple tether. You okay? I didn't reply. Not yet, the words too heavy. I needed to face this alone first, to sit in the silence and let it speak. Upstairs, I found Nathan in our bedroom, stuffing clothes into a duffel bag, the zipper's rasp harsh in the quiet. His movements were sharp, angry, his face a mask of defiance, his jaw set like stone. So you're the hero now, he said, not looking up, his voice bitter, cutting the air like a blade. Made me look like a fool in front of everyone, huh? I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed my heart, a dull ache, a bruise I couldn't touch. You did that to yourself, I said, my tone even not rising to his bait, my words steady as a pulse. You tried to destroy me, Nathan. He zipped the bag, the sound final and finally met my eyes. His gaze hard, unrepentant, a stranger's eyes in a familiar face. I'm leaving, Emily, he said, slinging the bag over his shoulder, the strap creaking under the weight. You win. But you'll regret this, mark my words. His words hung there, a threat wrapped in defeat, a last attempt to claw back control, but they didn't shake me, didn't pierce the armor I'd built. I stepped aside, letting him pass his footsteps heavy on the stairs, each one a fading echo. The front door slammed a sharp crack that rattled the windows, and the house fell silent. The kind of quiet that presses against your skin, heavy and alive. I walked to the window, the curtains soft under my fingers, and watched his car disappear down the street. Tail lights fading into the dusk. A red glow swallowed by the night. He was gone, and I felt nothing. No relief, no triumph, just a hollow space where love used to be a void I wasn't sure how to fill. I sat on the bed, the mattress dipping under me, its springs creaking softly, and opened my nightstand drawer, the wood scraping. Inside was a small wooden box, a gift from my mother years ago, its surface carved with vines worn smooth by time. I pulled out a folded note, her handwriting faint but clear, a delicate script. You are stronger than you know. I traced the words, my throat tight, my fingers lingering on the paper's texture, soft and fragile. Nathan's betrayal had tried to prove her wrong, to break me into pieces, but I'd stood up, faced him, reclaimed my place in that meeting room. Yet now in the stillness, the cost of it all settled in heavy and unyielding, like a stone. I couldn't move a weight I'd carry alone. I wandered downstairs, the house's silence louder now, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of Nathan's absence, the air thick with the scent of dust and memory. My phone lit up again, this time a voicemail from Clara, the notification glowing in the dim living room. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then played it, her voice calm but firm, a steady anchor. Emily, you pulled through today. I'm recommending you for the promotion. Let's talk tomorrow. I set the phone down on the coffee table, my chest tight, not with joy, but with a strange ache, a bruise I couldn't name. The victory I'd fought for felt distant, overshadowed by the wreckage of my marriage, a life I'd built now lying in shards. I stepped into the kitchen, the counters bare except for a single coffee filter crumpled and forgotten, its edges stained brown, a relic of that morning's betrayal. I picked it up, its texture rough, and my mind flashed to the mugs, the switch, the moment I'd taken control, a desperate act that had changed everything. It had worked, hadn't it? Nathan was gone, my career intact, the promotion within reach. But the cost clung to me heavy as damp cloth, a weight I couldn't shake. I tossed the filter in the trash, My movements slow, deliberate, like I was burying something, a moment, a marriage, a version of myself. Hannah arrived an hour later, her knock soft but insistent, a rhythm that pulled me back. I opened the door and she stepped inside, her eyes scanning my face, her scarf loose around her neck, the fabric catching the hall's light. She didn't ask about Nathan, didn't need to. Her silence a kind of knowing. Instead, she set a takeout bag on the table, the smell of fried rice filling the air warm and familiar, a small comfort. "You need to eat," she said, her voice gentle but unyielding, a sister's command. I nodded, sitting across from her, the table, a barrier between us, its wood scratched from years of use. We ate in quiet, the clink of forks, the only sound her presence steady, but not probing a tether I hadn't earned, but needed. She broke the silence first, her words careful, measured like stepping on thin ice. "I saw you in that meeting, Em. You were fierce standing there, owning it." I looked down at my plate rice, untouched, her praise a weight I couldn't carry, too heavy for my bruised heart. "Fierce," I repeated, my voice flat, hollow. "I just wanted to survive, Hannah." She reached for my hand, her fingers warm, but I pulled back, not ready for comfort, the touch too raw. "I saw Nathan leave," she said softer now, her eyes searching mine. "Are you okay?" I met her gaze, looking for judgment, but found only worry, a love I'd taken for granted. "I don't know." I admitted the truth, slipping out raw and unpolished, a confession I hadn't meant to make. Later at the office, I walked past Mark's desk, his workspace cluttered with papers and empty coffee cups. He looked up, his usual smirk gone, replaced by a flicker of unease, his shoulders tense. He nodded, a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. He'd underestimated me, and now he knew it, his ambition checked by my resolve. I kept walking, my heels steady on the carpet, the sound soft but sure. But inside, I felt no triumph, no thrill of victory. Clara's office door was open, her smile warm as I passed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. But even that couldn't lift the fog, a haze that clung to me. I'd won, hadn't I? The promotion, the respect the truth exposed, Nathan gone. But as I stood in the elevator, the doors closing with a soft thud, I felt only the quiet of a life unmoored, my strength. A fragile thing barely holding against the void. A silence that echoed louder than any victory. The morning light filtered through my living room curtains, soft and golden, painting the hardwood in warm stripes, the air carrying the faint scent of lavender from a candle I'd lit last night. I sat cross-legged on the floor, a notebook open in my lap. Its pages crisped, the pen heavy in my hand. Its ink, a deep blue. The house was mine now, every corner reshaped since Nathan left, a space I'd reclaimed inch by inch. I'd moved the couch to face the window, its cushions now bright with new pillows, swapped his dark lamps for ones with woven shades, their light softer, warmer. It felt like breathing again, like claiming a space that had been half his, for too long a home I was learning to love alone. I wrote a single line, "I am enough." The words looked small, but they carried a weight I was learning to trust, a truth I was carving into myself. I set the notebook aside and stood stretching my bare feet, cool against the floor, the wood smooth under my toes. The kitchen clock ticked softly, a rhythm I hadn't noticed before, steady and unhurried. I opened the back door, stepping onto the small patio where I'd started a garden last week, the air fresh with the scent of damp soil. Tiny green shoots poked through the earth, fragile but stubborn, like they knew they'd make it, their resilience a quiet mirror of my own. I knelt, brushing dirt from my hands, the grains rough against my skin, and felt a quiet pride, a small victory. I'd planted them alone, no one's approval needed, no one's shadow looming, just me and the earth building something new. My phone buzzed on the counter inside a soft vibration that broke the stillness. I ignored it at first, savoring the quiet, the morning's calm wrapping around me. But curiosity pulled me back, and I saw Hannah's name, her text a bright spot on the screen. She'd sent a photo of a lake, the water glinting under a cloudy sky. Its surface rippled by a soft breeze with a message. Weekend getaway, just us. I smiled, a real one, the kind that starts in your chest and warms you through a feeling I hadn't let in for years. Hannah and I hadn't been close, not since I'd chosen Nathan over her warnings, my heart too full of love to see her truth. Now her offer felt like a bridge, one I was ready to cross, a step toward mending what I'd broken. I walked to the bookshelf, its shelves sagging under the weight of old novels and photo albums pulling down one I hadn't touched in months. Dust coated the cover, a soft gray film, and I wiped it clean with my sleeves settling back on the couch, the cushions sinking under me. The pages crinkled as I opened them, revealing moments I'd buried: my college graduation, my cap askew, Hannah braiding my hair in our childhood bedroom, my mother's laugh frozen in a snapshot, her eyes bright with joy. I lingered on one of me and Nathan early in our dating days, his arm around me at a fair, the Ferris wheel blurred in the background. I didn't tear it out, didn't flinch. Instead, I closed the album, letting the memory sit, not as pain, but as part of my story. A chapter I'd lived and left behind. The doorbell rang, soft but startling, a chime that echoed in the quiet house. I opened it to find a delivery, a small package with my name in neat script, the cardboard slightly dented. Inside was a leather-bound planner, a gift from Clara, its cover smooth under my fingers, her note tucked inside. For your next chapter, Emily, keep shining. I ran my fingers over the words, my throat tight, a warmth spreading in my chest. Clara's faith in me, Hannah's loyalty, my own small victories. They were threads weaving something new, a tapestry I was learning to trust. I sat back, the planner in my lap, and felt my breath slow, the world steady for the first time in weeks, a calm I hadn't known I could find. I tucked Clara's planner into my bag and drove to the coffee shop down the street, the one with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu. Its windows fogged from the morning chill. The barista, a young woman with a nose ring, smiled as I ordered a lavender latte, something new. Its floral warmth, a small rebellion against my old routines, a taste that woke me up. I settled at a corner table, the wood scarred from years of use, the hum of conversation wrapping around me like a soft blanket, the clink of cups, a gentle rhythm. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was running from something, didn't feel Nathan's shadow chasing me. Clara arrived, her coat dusted with early fall leaves, their edges curling, and slid into the seat across from me. Her presence, calm, grounding, like a tree rooted deep. She didn't ask about Nathan or the meeting, didn't probe the wounds still healing. Instead, she sipped her tea, the steam curling upward, and said, "I've been where you are, Emily. Betrayed, blindsided, broken. It changes you, but it doesn't define you." Her words landed gently, not as advice, but as truth shared from a place of knowing, her eyes soft but steady. I nodded, stirring my latte, the spoon clinking softly, the steam warm against my face. "I'm learning that," I said, my voice quiet but sure. A truth I was starting to believe. We talked about work, about the promotion, about the new projects piling up, but it wasn't the point. It was her presence, steady and unjudging, that mattered, a quiet strength I could lean into. She told me about her own divorce years ago, how she'd rebuilt not by proving others wrong, but by choosing herself, by finding joy in small things, a garden, A book. A morning alone. I listened, my fingers tracing the table's wood grain, its texture rough under my nails, and felt a shift, like a door creaking open, light spilling through. I wasn't there yet, but I could see the path one step at a time, a journey I was ready to walk. I left the shop and walked to my car, the air crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves, the street quiet but alive. At home, I pulled out a blank canvas I'd bought on impulse, setting it on the kitchen table, its white surface stark under the light. I dipped a brush in soft blue paint, letting it glide without plan, the strokes uneven but mine, a dance of color and instinct. It wasn't art, not really, just a way to mark this moment, to say, I was here, still creating, still alive. The brush moved, and I thought of my mother, how she'd hum while gardening, her hands in the soil, finding joy in small acts of care. I was her daughter, carrying that forward, her strength in my bones. I stepped back, paint smudged on my hands, the blue streaking my skin, and looked out the window. The street was quiet, the sky a deep indigo stars, just beginning to show, faint but steady. I didn't need to fill the silence with plans or regrets. Didn't need to prove anything. I was enough, not because I'd won or survived, but because I was still choosing to stand, to paint, to breathe. I set the brush down, my heart steady, and let the night hold me gentle and whole, a peace I was learning to trust. Months later, I woke in my new apartment, the walls bare, but for a single framed sketch of a horizon, something I'd picked up at a flea market, its lines soft but sure. The bed creaked as I stretched, sunlight slipping through slatted blinds, warming the hardwood, the air carrying the faint scent of jasmine from a plant by the window. I'd moved here after the divorce papers were signed, a small place with a balcony just big enough for a chair, and a pot of marigolds, their yellow petals bright against the gray city. Each morning, I'd sit there with tea, the mug warm in my hands, watching the street below stir to life, delivery trucks, rumbling neighbors, waving the quiet routine, grounding me in a way I hadn't expected, a rhythm I was building alone. I slipped on sneakers and headed out, my ponytail swinging as I jogged through the park nearby, the path winding under oaks heavy with leaves. The air was cool, laced with the scent of cut grass, and my breath steadied with each step, my sneakers pounding softly on the dirt. Running was new, something I'd started to feel my own strength, not to prove anything, but to know I could keep going, to feel my heart beat strong. Kids laughed on a playground, their voices bright, their swings creaking, and I smiled, letting their joy brush against me, without needing to hold it, a lightness I was learning to carry. Back home, I showered and dressed for work, choosing a green blouse that felt like spring, its fabric soft against my skin. The office had changed since that meeting, the air lighter, the hallways brighter. My promotion was official, and the team's respect was hard-earned, their nods in the hallway, a quiet acknowledgement, a shift I felt in their eyes. I kept a small stone on my desk, smooth and gray, a gift from Hannah during our late getaway, its weight grounding me. It sat by my computer, a reminder of days spent throwing pebbles into the water, their ripples spreading, our laughter echoing until my sides ached, a bond rebuilt on honesty. I opened my laptop, emails piling up their subject lines, a blur of deadlines and requests. But one caught my eye, an invitation to mentor a new hire. A young woman fresh from college, her resume sharp with ambition. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keys, the screen's glow soft in the morning light. Clara had suggested it, saying I had a story worth sharing, a strength others could learn from. I typed a reply, agreeing, my chest warm, with something like purpose, a spark I hadn't felt before. Helping someone else felt like a step forward, not away from the past, but through it, building something new, a legacy of resilience. By evening, I cooked dinner, chopping vegetables with a steady hand, the knife's rhythm soothing the blade flashing under the kitchen light. The radio played softly, a song I didn't know, but hummed along to, anyway its melody light, unhurried. I ate at the counter, the plate simple, the food mine, the taste of fresh herbs bright on my tongue. The apartment was small, but it was enough filled with things I'd chosen: a woven rug, its colors warm, a stack of novels by the couch, a candle that smelled of cedar, its flame flickering softly. I looked out at the balcony, the marigolds catching the last light, their petals glowing, and felt my shoulders ease. My breath slow, the world soft, and open a space I was learning to call home. The weekend came, and I hosted a small gathering, my apartment glowing with string lights I'd hung across the ceiling, their soft white warmth casting shadows on the walls. Hannah arrived first, carrying a bottle of wine, her laugh filling the room as she set it down, the glass clinking on the counter, her presence a spark of joy. Clara followed, her coat folded over her arm, her presence calm, grounding a quiet strength that steadied me, and then a few new friends from work. Their voices weaving a warmth I hadn't known I could build, their laughter, a melody I hadn't expected. We sat around a low table, plates of cheese and bread scattered between us. The conversation easy, unguarded, a tapestry of stories and shared silences. I watched them, my heart full, not because the room was crowded, but because it was mine, chosen real, a space I'd carved for myself. Later, as the others chatted their voices, a soft hum, I stepped onto the balcony, the night air cool against my skin, carrying the faint scent of rain. The city hummed below, a soft pulse of life, carrying on cars, passing a distant siren, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. I leaned against the railing, a glass of water in my hand, its surface catching the city's lights, and thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, the one who'd trusted too easily, who'd dimmed herself to keep peace, who'd believed love could blind her to truth. She wasn't gone, not entirely, but she'd grown, learned to stand in her own light, to let pain carve space for something stronger, a resilience I hadn't known I had. I'd seen Mark at work last week, his desk now in a quieter corner, his swagger softened, his tie loose. He'd stopped me in the hall, his voice low, hesitant, and said, "I was wrong about you, Emily. I'm sorry." I nodded, not needing his regret, but I offered a small smile, letting it go, the moment light but final. Forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about me, about carrying less weight, about choosing freedom over resentment. Hannah, too, had changed, her old caution, replaced by a fierceness that matched mine, a fire we'd both found. We'd spent hours by that lake, not just laughing, but talking, really talking about fears, dreams, the things we'd buried under years of silence. She was my mirror, my strength, my way back, a bond I'd never let break again. The lesson wasn't loud or grand, not a banner I'd wave. It was in the quiet choices to run each morning, my breath steady to mentor that new hire, to let my apartment stay a little messy because it was mine, its imperfections a kind of beauty. Betrayal had broken me, shattered the life I'd built, but it also showed me I could rebuild, not by being perfect, but by being honest with myself first, by listening to the truth in my bones. It taught me to trust the small voice inside, the one that knew my worth before anyone else did, the one that whispered I was enough. It taught me that healing isn't a finish line. It's a path walked one step at a time, with grace for the stumbles, with room for the light to come through. I stepped back inside, the laughter pulling me in a warm tide, and raised my glass toasting to new beginnings, my voice soft but sure. The others joined their voices a chorus, their glasses catching the light, and I felt rooted not to a place or a person, but to myself, to the woman I'd become. That was enough, more than enough. What moment in your life showed you your own strength? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. If this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Thank you for listening, for being here. Here's to healing, to growing, to finding your way wherever you are tonight.